prayer. I'm going to begin my prelude with a song that was written by a good friend of mine who lives right down the road in Palm Harbor. Her name is Joy Katzen-Guthrie. And she wrote this song called The Holiday Circle of Love. And it talks about all the different holidays, the winter holidays, and how they are celebrated. The colors of autumn have opened our hearts to the start of the holiday season. All the world over, each faith will take part in a festival for different reasons. Each one has its own custom. It changes from nation to nation. No matter the name, the idea's the same. It's the worldwide love celebration. So sing, dance, join hands. Let's form a circle. We're one family, so love one another like sister and brother, and laugh, shout, stretch out, widen the circle. Show me a smile and then pass it around, our holiday circle of love. In Dearest house is a picture in lights. Heinrich is dressing a pine tree. Rashid's been fasting a long 40 nights, while David's menorah burned brightly. My Ling is baking a moon cake, so sweet no other comes near it. White feathers chanting while he is dancing a prayer to the great white spirit. So sing, dance, join hands. Let's form a circle. We're one family, so love one another like sister and brother, and laugh, shout, stretch out, widen the circle. Give me a hug and then pass it around, our holiday circle of love. Blow me a kiss and then pass it around, our holiday circle of love.
Welcome, dear friends. Welcome to our spiritual home, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs. Our church is located here in the heart of the walkable Tarpon Springs Historic District and is known as the home of the Innes paintings. My name is Jean Nelson, and I am serving as your worship associate today. We are a church of many welcomes, and we offer a warm welcome to all of you who have joined us. This is a liberal community for all ages, promoting spiritual growth, social justice, and the arts. As such, ours is an active church, and everyone is invited to participate in any of our activities, whether you are a member or not. To learn more about events, our church calendar is on our website, uutarpon.org, or you can discuss activities with church members of our own member chair. Who will contact you if you have information. Bonnie will be singing throughout the service, and you are welcome to sing. And you are welcome to sing along to the songs and hymns with your mask on. For those present with us in the building, we have connection cards available in the pews near the hymnals. If you fill out one and put it in the offering plate, we will be able to keep in touch with you. We are delighted to welcome back Reverend Katie Culbert for our service today. Reverend Katie graduated with a Master of Divinity degree from Meadville Lombard Theological School. She interned at and was ordained by the UU Church of Sarasota. She has worked as a director of religious exploration, and she is a chaplain, most recently employed at Tampa General Hospital. Reverend Katie lives in Tampa, Florida, with her two teenage boys, Desi and Casey. Music is provided by our music director, Bonnie Whitehurst. If you are here in the building, we encourage you to meet your friends on Zoom in the forum room at the conclusion of the service. We light our chalice with these words by Gordon B. McKeeman. Deep calls into deep, joy calls into joy, light calls into light. Let the kindling of the flame rekindle in us the inner light of love, of peace, of hope. And as one flame lights another, nor grows the less, we pledge ourselves to be bearers of the light wherever we are.
For our chalice lighting music, I chose a hymn from the Gray hymnal, number 184. It's a Buddhist chant from the 5th century. I'll play it through once while you're thumbing through the book, and then we may sing it together. We can sing it. Be lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves as to the only lamp. Be lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves as to the only lamp.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here with you this morning again on this gorgeous Florida day. This is what I call Chamber of Commerce weather. This is why we are here. I love it. I love it. So our story for all ages today is called The Mountain Who Loved a Bird, and it's written by Alice McLaren, and I have adapted it. There once was a mountain made of bare stone. It stood alone in the middle of a desert. No plants grew on its hard slopes, nor could any animal or bird or insect live there. One day a small bird appeared. The mountain was amazed. Nothing like this had ever come from the sky before. "Who are you?" the mountain asked. "What is your name?" "I am a bird," replied the other. "My name is Joy, and I have come from distant lands where everything is green. Every spring I fly high into the air looking for the best place to build my nest and raise my children. I will rest here on your side, but I must continue my search." "Must you go on? Couldn't you just stay here?" the mountain asked. Joy shook her head. "Birds are living things," she explained. "We must have food and water. Nothing grows here for me to eat. There are no streams for me to drink from." "If you cannot stay here, will you come back again someday?" asked the mountain. "Because you are so kind, I will come back again in the spring before I build my nest, and I will stay a few hours before leaving. But you should know that mountains last forever and birds do not. I will make you this promise, though. Every spring of my life, I will return and greet you and fly high above you and sing to you. And since my life will not last forever, I will give one of my daughters my own name, Joy, and tell her how to find you. And she will have a daughter, and name her Joy as well, and tell her how to find you. Each Joy will have a daughter Joy, so that no matter how many years pass, you will always have a friend to greet you and fly high above you and sing to you." The mountain was both happy and sad. "I still wish that you could stay, but I'm glad you will return." And the bird flew away. Year after year, when every spring came, a small bird flew to the mountain and sang, "I am Joy, and I have come to greet you." At the end of each visit, the mountain always asked, "Isn't there a way that you can stay?" And Joy always answered, "No, but I will return next year." Each year, the mountain looked forward more and more to Joy's visit. Each year, it grew harder and harder to watch her go. On the 100th spring, when it was time for Joy to leave, the mountain asked once more, "Isn't there some way that you could stay?" Joy answered, as she always did, "No, but I will return next year." The mountain watched as she disappeared into the sky, and suddenly its heart broke. The hard stone cracked, and from the deepest part of the mountain, tears gushed forth and rolled down the mountain into a stream. The next spring, a small bird appeared, singing, "I am Joy, and I have come to greet you." This time, the mountain did not reply. It only wept, thinking of how soon she would have to leave and of all the months that would go by before she returned. After a while, the little bird just flew away, saying softly, "I will return again." When the next spring came, Joy returned, and in her beak she carried a small seed. Joy carefully tucked the seed into a crack in the hard stone close to the mountain's stream of tears, so it would stay moist, and then she flew away. During the weeks that followed, the seed in the crack of that rock began to send down roots, and a small plant began to grow. The mountain was so deep in sadness, though, and blinded with tears, that it didn't even notice the small plant. The next spring, Joy brought another seed, and the spring after that, another. Years passed in this way, and the roots of new plants softened the stone near the stream of tears. Grasses and little flowering plants sprouted in the hollows near the stream. Tiny insects carried there by the wind scurried among the leaves. Meanwhile, the roots of the very first seed went deeper and deeper into the heart of the mountain. Above the ground, what had started as a tiny shoot had grown into the trunk of a young tree. At last, the mountain felt the roots reaching down like gentle fingers, filling and healing the cracks in its heart. Sorrow faded, and the mountain began noticing the changes that had been taking place. Each year, Joy returned, bringing another seed, and each year the mountain asked Joy again, "Isn't there a way that you can stay?" And Joy still answered, "No, but I will return again next year." More years passed, and the mountain's surface became alive with plants and animals. The mountain was filled with hope and with happiness. And sure enough, when the next spring came, Joy flew to the mountain, not carrying a seed, but a small twig. Straight to the tallest tree on the mountain she flew, to the tree that had grown from that first seed. She placed the twig on the branch in which she would build her nest. "I am Joy," she sang, "and I have come to stay."
My song after the story is called, well, it's a metta prayer, a Buddhist metta prayer. And there are many variations to this, including one that we will sing later from our Teal hymn book. But it starts by blessing oneself, gradually expanding good intentions for the entire world and all beings, even our enemies. And what I read said that if we all said this prayer with sincerity, at least once a week, the world could be a very different place. This one is by Earth Mama. May I abide in loving kindness. May I be free from suffering. May I receive what I need. May I be at peace. May you abide in loving kindness. May you be free from suffering. May you receive what you need. May you be at peace, Earth. May Earth abide in loving kindness. May Earth be free from suffering. May Earth receive what she needs. May Earth be at peace. May all abide in loving kindness. May we be free from suffering. May we receive what we need. May we be at peace. May all be at peace.
Now is the time in the service where we take our offering for the work and welfare of this church. Ours is a free faith, which must be sustained financially. Please go to our website, uutarpon.org, and click the donate button, or you may mail your offering to the church at 57 Reed Street, Tarpon Springs, Florida, 34689. For those of you with us in person, we ask that you place your offering in the offering plates. This month, the Social Justice Council is asking for donations December and January Give the Plate. It will fund the Tarpon Springs Laundry Project planned for February 5th, 2022. This is one of our highest cost projects and typically takes 2 Give the Plates to fund completely. A laundry project is desperately needed by low-income people in Tarpon Springs. It's difficult to feel dignified when you don't have clean clothes. Please give generously to support low-income families access to wash their clothing and linens. You can mail a check to 57 Reed Street, Tarpon Springs, Florida, 34589. Please indicate that your donation is for the January, February, and December Give the Plate for the laundry project, or donate online at the church website, www.uutarpon.org, and select Social Justice Projects and indicate the laundry project in the comment. Donations will be accepted during the entire month of January and February. Thank you for your support. The offering will now be given and received.
This story that Reverend Katie read was about joy, and this is a song called Ode to Joy. played on this instrument right here, which is a mountain dulcimer, or also called a lap dulcimer, because you play it on your lap.
About 2,500 years ago, in the Himalayan foothills of present-day Nepal, there lived a great palace. And in the palace, a king who was going to have a son. For this son, the king had a particularly grand idea. He would make the child's life perfect. The child would never know a moment of suffering. Every need, every desire would be accounted for at all times. The king built high walls around the palace that prevented the prince from knowing the outside world. He spoiled the child, lavishing him with food and gifts, surrounding him with servants who catered to his every whim. And just as planned, the child grew up ignorant of the routine cruelties of human existence. All of the prince's childhood went on like this, but despite the endless luxury and opulence, the prince became kind of a pissed-off young man. Soon, every experience felt empty and valueless. The problem was that no matter what his father gave him, it seemed never enough, never meant anything. So late one night, the prince snuck out of the palace to see what was beyond the palace walls. He had a servant drive him around through the local village, and what he saw horrified him. For the first time in his life, the prince saw human suffering. He saw sick people, old people, homeless people, people in pain, and even people who were dying. The prince returned to the palace and found himself in kind of an existential crisis. Not knowing how to process what he had seen, he got all emo about it, and he complained a lot. And as is so typical of young men, the prince ended up blaming his father for the very things that his father had tried to do for him. It was the riches, the prince thought, that made him so miserable, that had made his life seem so meaningless. So he decided to run away. But the prince was more like his father than he knew. He had grand ideas, too. He wouldn't just run away. He would give up his royalty, his family, all of his possessions, and live in the streets, sleeping in the dirt like an animal. Then he would starve himself, torture himself, and beg for scraps of food from strangers for the rest of his life. And so, the next night, the prince snuck out of the palace, this time never to return. For years, he lived as a bum, a discarded and forgotten remnant of society. And as planned, the prince suffered greatly. He suffered through disease, hunger, pain, loneliness, and decay. He confronted the brink of death itself, often limited to eating just one single nut each day. A few years went by, then a few more, and then nothing happened. The prince began to notice that his life of suffering wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. It wasn't bringing him the insight that he thought that he would receive. It wasn't relieving any deeper meaning. It wasn't revealing any deeper meaning of the world and its mysteries and the ultimate purpose of life. In fact, the prince came to know that the rest of us, what we've always kind of known, that suffering totally sucks. And it's not necessarily that meaningful either. As with being rich, there is no value in suffering when it's done without purpose. And soon the prince came to the conclusion that his grand idea, like his father's, was in fact a terrible idea, and he should probably go and do something else instead. Totally confused, the prince cleaned himself up and went and found a big tree near a river. He decided that he would sit under that tree and not get up until he came up with another grand idea. As the legend goes, the confused prince sat under that tree for 49 days. Now, we won't delve into the biological viability of sitting under a tree in the same place for 49 days, but let's just say that in the time, the prince came to a number of profound realizations. One of those realizations was this, that life itself is a form of suffering. The rich suffer because of their riches. The poor suffer because of their poverty. People without a family suffer because they have no family. People with a family suffer because of their family. People who pursue worldly pleasures suffer because of their worldly pleasures. People who abstain from worldly pleasures suffer because of abstaining. This isn't to say that all suffering is equal. Some suffering is certainly more painful than other suffering, but we must all suffer nonetheless. Years later, the prince would build his own philosophy and share it with the world, and this would be its first and central tenet, that pain and loss are inevitable, and we should let go of trying to resist them. The prince would later become known as the Buddha. And in case you haven't heard about him, he's kind of a big deal. There is a premise that underlies a lot of our assumptions and beliefs. The premise is that having a joyful life can be worked for and earned like a master's degree or putting together a complicated Lego set. If I achieve X, then I will experience joy. If I look like Y, then I will experience joy. If I can be with a person like Z, then I will experience joy. This premise, though, is the problem. Joy is not a solvable equation. Dissatisfaction and unease are inherent parts of the human experience and human nature, and are necessary components to creating a life filled with joy. Mark Manson, author of the book The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F, wrote that retelling of this ancient tale. It's the name of the book. That's the name of the book. I didn't say it. This Wednesday is Bodhi Day, the Buddhist celebration of Prince Siddhartha Gautama. That's the young man I was just speaking of. It's his enlightenment. When I did my chaplaincy internship at Tampa General Hospital, I had very little previous experience with deep human suffering, like people that were extremely sick, homeless, in pain, abused, dying. But at the end of my internship, I felt like Siddhartha when he had left the palace. My eyes were open for the first time, experiencing firsthand the suffering of my brothers and sisters. Now, I did not respond by going and sitting under a tree. Honestly, it took me many years to make sense of this, and I tried to figure out what I was going to do about it. I used to think it was my responsibility to remove people's suffering. Spoiler alert, I can't do that. I can help facilitate their healing. I can assist in facilitating their joy. I had a congregant in Tampa once tell me that I was a joy facilitator. I thought that was super cool. It's on my Facebook profile now. But I absolutely 100% cannot remove people's suffering. And as I got older and began working on my own past traumas and experiencing my own illness and pain and death of loved ones, it became a priority for me to fully understand how to live a life of profound suffering while also living a life of profound joy. And so, how do we do that? And what does it look like? First off, let's talk about the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is a feeling, just like sad or mad or scared. These are feelings. One can live a life of joy, grounded in joy, and feel sad. We know that feelings come and feelings go. And one way to have joy in our lives is to allow ourselves to feel our feelings. When we are angry, be angry. When we are remorseful, be remorseful. Be mindful of your feelings. Mindfulness is a practice in Buddhism in which we are open to the experience of the moment. We do not cling to the past or focus so much on the future. We look at the here and the now. When we live in the present, joy often arises for no reason. This consciousness, this being awake to the present is not dependent on conditions. Mindfulness is one way we cultivate and express joyfulness. Cultivate and express. For me, thinking about the difference between cultivating joy and expressing joy is a little bit like the question of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Do we express joy after manifesting it, or do we manifest joy by expressing it? I think it's safe to say that joy is not only the fruit, but it's also a prerequisite of joy. So what does joy look like? Joy is laughter. Joy is dancing. Joy is skipping. It is singing, playing. Joy is crying. Joy is giving. Joy is creating. Joy is smiling. I have a Melanie album from the early 70s. It was my mother's album. And I love this album. And there's a song on there called Smile. And she sings, I love people who smile. If everyone smiled, we'd have a hometown all over the world. And she goes on to sing in a French accent. I don't really do accents, but it goes, I don't trust the American smile. They smile for nothing. I think it's to disarm you or something. And then she says, no, I don't think so. I smile because I want to feel some kind of a connection. I look at someone and I think we're connected. And in the words of Buddy the Elf from the movie Elf with Will Ferrell, smiling is my favorite. If you've ever seen an interview with or seen pictures of the Dalai Lama, who is the highest spiritual leader of Tibet, you may notice that he is often smiling or laughing. He does not take himself so seriously. I think that we take ourselves a little too seriously sometimes. If we were to lighten up a bit, our lives would be more joyful. Now, this isn't a Pollyanna point of view. I don't think anyone would accuse the Dalai Lama of not seeing the suffering of the world. The Dalai Lama is not naive. He does not wear rose-colored glasses, but he will freely admit that he is mischievous and he delights in humor. From an interview with Jen Christensen of CNN, I had this experience in 1954 when I was in Peking. His Holiness said, some Indian ambassador, he called on me, come to my room. Then, as usual, some Chinese foreign ministries officials come. Everyone too much formal like that. And then he mimed being stiff. Then, somehow, they brought some fruit. Somehow, dumped over. And then everyone scrambled around looking at the fruit, picking up the fruit, acting like human beings, he said, laughing and miming how they were scrambling around the floor. His Holiness suggests everyone let themselves be playful and find the funny in life. In his book, My Spiritual Journey, he calls himself a professional laugher. The Dalai Lama calls himself a professional laugher. A quick laugh and an ability to see humor in daily situations and be playful have been shown scientifically to lower our stress levels, both for ourselves and for the folks around us. Being playful and using humor, people also become more observant and more empathetic. They are bored less, we learn more, we have more friends, and studies show that people who are willing to let out their playful side tend to have a better sense of all-around well-being. His Holiness believes that no matter how difficult your life may be, this approach will bring you something deeper. Thinking about only the negative aspect doesn't help to find solutions, and seeing it destroys your peace of mind, he writes. I love smiles. Dalai Lama says, I love smiles, and my wish is to see more smiles, real smiles. If we want those smiles, we must create the reasons that make them appear. Create the reasons that make them appear. In Buddhism, there are many paths to creating joy in your life, and I want to lift up three of those paths, and those are showing compassion, finding delight in others' joy, and recognizing that we all have our own perspectives. According to the Dalai Lama, if you want to experience joy, practice compassion. And if you want others to experience joy, practice compassion. Compassion is the wish for others to be free from suffering. And this wish has nothing to do with the circumstances of that being's suffering. To have compassion for all, regardless of their ideologies or opposing viewpoints, we want them to be free of suffering. When we think of alleviating other people's suffering, our own suffering is reduced. And this means self-compassion as well. Buddhist teacher Noah Rashita says this about self-compassion. I love this. Contemporary culture measures us constantly. It evaluates us and judges us based on our achievements. We're always comparing ourselves, and self-loathing often results when we fail to live up to these expectations that we internalize. We think, I'm not good enough. I'm not as smart as so-and-so. I'm not as wealthy as so-and-so. I'm not as good looking as so-and-so. And we learn to be compassionate towards ourselves. When we do that, then we learn to recognize our own humanity, our own needs. To be kind to yourself is as important as being kind to others. And when we're talking about this, we're talking about the pillar of joy, compassion. A second pathway to a life of joy is feeling joy because others are experiencing joy. In Buddhism, this is called appreciative joy, or empathetic or sympathetic joy. Instead of feeling envy or jealousy or self-pity when someone gets a promotion or moves into a better place or finds the love of their life, we feel joy, celebrating the success of another. Life is not a competition. Now, I have been guilty of letting my ego stand in the way of feeling joy for others when they feel joy. I have felt spite when I did not win the lottery and someone else won the lottery. I have felt resentment towards couples that I see on Facebook who are happy and laughing and at restaurants while I'm at home alone eating cold pizza. I'm not proud, but I know that in order for me to live a joyful life, I must practice sympathetic joy, delighting in another's good fortune. We can train our minds to experience joy for others that we love and that we care about. And this is a spiritual discipline. And finally, a third pathway is recognizing that we each have our own perspective and experience. This is critical to living a life of joy. Some of you may know the parable of the blind men and the elephant. Y'all have heard of the parable of the blind men and the elephant? You have the blind men, and they're each touching a different part of the elephant. One is touching an ear, one is touching a side, one might be touching the tail, but they're all touching an elephant. So the idea is that by realizing and accepting that the way we perceive reality is a lot like a blind person describing an elephant, then we can accept the validity of different perspectives. So that turns the perspective of I or me into we. Whatever I can perceive the reality to be, if I can combine it with your perspective or, just any other perspective, we understand more. The more perspectives we have, the more it all makes sense. That's the wide view. That's the wide view, a view that grounds us in joy and interdependence, which, by the way, is the seventh principle of Unitarian Universalism, interdependence, and it doesn't ground us in despair or individuality. Independence. There's a difference. The narrow view is thinking, no, only my perspective is valid because only mine is right. We all have that tendency to want to think that our perspective is the only correct one. The reality is, just as in the parable, all the perspectives are right because they're all incomplete. In the story of Siddhartha's enlightenment, he discovered that life is full of suffering. I have sat beside the bed of patients who have told me their life's story, and unimaginable suffering. People who have no friends, people who have no family, no job, no money, who are in constant pain, whose health is failing. People who have no hope. But the message of hope in Buddhism is there are practices that we can engage in that lead us to a life of joy in spite of the brutal conditions of life. I remember being in those patients' rooms and leaving as a young chaplain feeling so defeated, like a complete failure, because I could not save them from the crappy hand that life had dealt them. But what I could do was sit with them and listen, to show them compassion, to guide them to a deeper understanding of meaning, connection, to maybe help them laugh and smile for a moment, to be a resource as they reflect on how to live a life of suffering while possibly also living a life of joy. Instead of joy being fleeting and dependent, it becomes ever present. Instead of banishing unwanted experience to the desert of a closed heart, we practice offering them a gentle space to just be. And we pay attention. We pay attention to the positive emotions that already exist. And in virtually any life, no matter how painful your life may be, there exists small pleasures that cause these positive emotions. A gentle, caring touch, a moment free of pain, hearing a beautiful new piece of music, tasting a bite of Publix birthday cake. It's got to be Publix. And we focus not on that thing, not on the cake, not on the touch, not the music, but the pleasure. The pleasure. We focus on the pleasure, not the thing that caused the pleasure. By practicing joy as a spiritual discipline, we begin to feel a sense of contentment, like a child who runs around with inexplicable joy and curiosity. Joy is infectious. A joyful person will almost be incapable of keeping their joy contained. Our discipline, whether it be mindfulness, prayer, meditation, dancing, that's mine, that's one of my spiritual disciplines, dancing, singing, selfless generosity, it's something we must practice and be intentional about. Not only will it bring joy into our own lives, but into the lives of others, because joy is contagious. Through each of us naturally sharing the great sense of joy and fulfillment we gain through our practice, we can ultimately elevate the state of humanity. May it be so.
Our hymn is number 1031 in the Teal book, 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness. And notice that verse 2 and verse 3 are at the bottom. I is replaced with you, and I is replaced with we on the second and third times. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we
Our closing words are from the Buddhist monk Nyanaponika Thera. I practice saying that just to let y'all know. Nyanaponika Thera. Life, though full of woe, holds also so much happiness and joy, unknown to most. Let us teach people to seek and to find real joy within themselves and to rejoice in the joy of others. Let us teach them to unfold their joy to ever sublimer heights. Noble and sublime joy is not foreign to the teachings of the Enlightened One. Wrongly, the Buddhist teaching is sometimes considered a doctrine of melancholy. Far from it. It leads step by step to an ever pure life of joy.
And now let us sing and or hum Spirit of Life, number 123 in the Gray Book.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Our chalice extinguishing words are by Deborah Burrell. We have basked in the warmth and beauty of this flame and this community. As the chalice flame is extinguished, let us carry its glow within. Let us kindle new sparks within these walls and beyond. We have the following announcements. Next Sunday, December 12th, we will have a new member recognition ceremony during the service for all members who have joined the church in the last 16 months. And it's been a while. and then after the service on December 12th, we will have a new to UUCTS gathering, informal, no agenda, for those who are interested in learning more about our congregation. The winner of the Name the Newsletter contest will be announced and awarded their prize on December 12th also.
For my postlude, I chose a song from You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. It's the finale called Happiness, when all the characters say a little thing that makes them happy. Happiness is 2 kinds of ice cream, finding your skate key, telling the time. Happiness is learning to whistle, tying your shoe for the very first time. Happiness is playing the drum in your own school band. And happiness is walking hand in hand. Happiness is 5 different crayons, knowing a secret, climbing a tree. Happiness is finding a nickel, catching a firefly, setting it free. Happiness is being alone every now and then, and happiness is coming home again. Happiness is morning and evening, daytime and nighttime too. For happiness is anyone and anything at all that's loved by you. Happiness is having a sister, sharing a sandwich, getting along. Happiness is singing together when day is through. And happiness is those who sing with you. Happiness is morning and evening, daytime and nighttime too. For happiness is anyone